This is my Christmas tree for Village. Some of you are having questions concerning my video that I did last year on how to do this Village tree, revolving tree stand. And maybe let me go through some of the questions and let me answer those, and then we can kind of go through the illustration. But one question was, does the pipe have to go all the way down to the bottom of the stand? And the answer is no. As long as you got enough thread into this opening so that it provides enough friction so that when the revolving stand turns, it also turns the pipe. But it doesn't mean that you have to screw this all the way down as far as it'll go. It'll go as far as it want to go, and if it has any play left in it, so be it. I wouldn't bother about it. Again, as long as when the revolver turns, this pipe turns. That's the only thing that matters. And then someone asked, should they're afraid that the weight of their stand, of the tree, is going to crush or break this revolving stand? And the answer to that is that the weight on the stand should be very minimal. Only thing the stand is doing is rotating the shelves up above. As far as the weight coming down, there's a Lazy Susan in here, a Lazy Susan hardware that carries the load. That's the reason why you're building this support box. The only purpose of this support box is not for decoration. It's primarily to carry the weight of your shelves, your Village, and your tree up above. So if you look real closely here, if you follow this, you'll see that my stand, revolving stand, is here. And I use a 3-inch, 1-inch diameter threaded steel plumbing pipe, threads on both ends. Threaded that into the revolver. On the opposite end, I added a 1-inch, because I'm using a 1-inch diameter pipe, I added a 1-inch wall flange. It's called a wall flange. If you were using a 3/4 inch pipe, you would just have to mate it up to a 3/4 inch wall flange. Steel pipe is strong. As far as the weight of this tree, the shells, and all the decoration that you have on it, unless this is a 15-foot tree, something like that, you shouldn't really have to worry about this pipe breaking or the flange breaking, or again the load being carried downward into the revolver, because again this Lazy Susan that I'm trying to show here in green is actually carrying the weight. So when this weight of this shelf here, as well as the other shelves up here, push downward, this Lazy Susan is actually carrying the weight. Now, if some people want to know, if just to make sure we're talking about the same thing as far as the Lazy Susan. This is an old one here, but this is a Lazy Susan. You can get the hardware, and this is basically what it is. Let me kind of move it out of the way here. This is a a 12-inch Lazy Susan here. So I would use at least an 8-inch or 12-inch, but it can be smaller on your tree, but it doesn't have to be. Again, it's a function of how much weight you're carrying. If you only got a 4-inch tree, 4-foot tree, excuse me. If you only have a 4-foot tree, you don't need a Lazy Susan that big. You really don't. Here's a small Lazy Susan that would be sufficient for maybe a 4-foot tree, 5-foot tree. Anything above that, just because of the balancing, you want something bigger. But again, this is a Lazy Susan hardware, and this is only, what size is this one? This one is 3.5 inch. So that's the hardware that we're talking about here. The other question someone asked, again, this support box, you put an opening in here in order to allow the pipe to pass through it. But this hole that you put in the top up here allows the pipe to pass through, but again, the weight from your Lazy Susan is being carried on the top of this, box. From there, your Lazy Susan is tied to a small board, plywood, whatever, whether it's 3/4 inch, 1/2 inch, or whatever. Your Lazy Susan is sandwiched between this board here, which is shown clear, and the support box. Then bolted from this small board through is actually your bolts that actually keep everything turning together. And then you basically following the same pattern of repeating over and over again. Depends on how many shelves you want. You know, like the first shelf, you have a flange, wall flange, a pipe, another wall flange attached to a next shelf, which is slightly smaller, and then you start duplicating this for every shelf that you add. So if you got 2 shelves, 3 shelves, or 4 shelves, you're basically going to repeat this that many times in order to get your tree stacked up. And what I mean by that is, let me see if I can show it here, if I have another example. Here's a stand, for example. This is a Lazy Susan. This tree, village tree stand, has a 19 inch diameter first shelf. Then there's a pipe that goes to the next shelf, which is 16 inches in diameter, goes to the next shelf, which is 12 inches diameter, etc., etc. And again, what's actually connecting these would be your wall flange here, your wall flange here, and this will be your pipe, your wall flange here for the next shelf going up, your wall flange, and your pipe, etc., etc., etc. Someone asked the question, did I use the insert that came with the revolver? And my answer to that is no. This is the insert I think that you're referring to. This insert, again, I used a 1-inch diameter pipe, and that fitted just right, because in reality, even though it says a 1-inch diameter, it means 1-inch inside diameter. The actual outside, the OD diameter of the pipe is 1 1/4. So if you look at the specifications that came with your stand, it should say that it'll fit a 1 1/4 tree stock or a 3/4 inch. If you have a 3/4 inch, this slides down into the original insert, and then this is actually, if you look at it here, as you can see it, is actually 3/4. Again, the ID of the pipe is 3/4, but the OD of the steel pipe is 1 inch. So this shows that the outside diameter of this is 1 inch from here to here. What I just noticed on this insert is that there's some grooves on the inside of it. So if you're actually going to use a 3/4 inch pipe with the nominal outside diameter of 1 inch, you're going to have to get a file or some sandpaper and file down those inside grooves. So I can see now that if you try to screw a 3/4 inch pipe into this insert here, it's not going to go all the way. You got to smooth down those ridges inside there. And again, just to kind of recap this, you bought a tree stand, and that tree stand has either a 1 inch, 1 1/4 inch, or 1 inch opening. And this, if your stand, your tree is actually 1 inch, this is what you would insert in there. Otherwise, your tree stalk should go straight into this. It does not have to fit all the way down in the bottom, long as that when the revolver turns, it turns the pipe. That's really all that matters. This pipe, again, I use a 3 inch, but it depends on how tall your box is. No, I don't have the dimensions offhand of what size box I use, but from the height of my stand to the bottom of my box, I had to figure out how long a pipe did I need to use, and in order to have this first flange up here extend above the support line, because again, this has to be high enough so that I can get my Lazy Susan in between here. My Lazy Susan is what's carrying all the weight, and that allows the Lazy Susan to attach to the first shelf, and then I just started repeating everything again over and over again. So this is how I did it in Christmas of 2018. Now if you look at my latest video for 2019, I did it slightly different, but either way would work. It's just that I was experimenting and I wanted to try something different, but this should be self-functional once you get everything working. But it's really crucial that this relationship of this dimension and this dimension, based on the size of your box, you got to figure in all those factors. So I can't tell you what size box you use because I'm not sure what size Lazy Susan you're going to use, what size pipe you're going to use, whether it's a 1 inch or 3/4 inch, if you're going to use a wall flange or some other means to attach to that first support shelf. It really depends. Now, one of the things I caution everybody about is that this is a threaded connection here, and it's a threaded connection up here. Once you screw this pipe into this stand, it's going to be almost impossible to unscrew it out. And the reason being is that as this screws down into the stand, and if you try to unscrew it, the stand actually rotates in that direction. So now you got the stand turning in the same counterclockwise direction that you're trying to get this pipe out of, and it's just going to be a situation where it's never going to. You may get lucky and it works, but more than likely, it
for your information, I don't get automatic notifications.
Have any questions
on Facebook like I do?
Send me comments,
YouTube.
and I'll
So
try
send me
to
something,
keep
want
you
me to reply
guys
quickly,
on the right track
do it
towards
on,
having
YouTube.
a revolving village Christmas tree for this coming Christmas year. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.